Hello, welcome back. We're taking a look at peace today and war and stopping the war. Stop the war. That's the invitation that goes out to you today. And we are going to talk about this just for a few minutes. The message is very brief. It's very simple, like all of spirituality. God is. That's it. Discussion's over. All right, let's continue on. Spirituality is so simple that it just escapes us in our day-to-day life. So you might find yourself thinking, because we get so accustomed to running around frantic, dazed, confused, upset, stressed, overwhelmed. In fact, in many modern societies worldwide, stress is a cultural badge of honor. You might be seen in a positive light by your employers, by your colleagues, by all of the people around you and society itself if you are absolutely frantic, frantic. Yet, what is that doing for your peace of mind? You can tell yourself that, oh, yeah, you're okay, frantic, overwhelmed. You can say that. You can say that you're 100% comfortable multitasking and juggling plates, 8 billion of them. That number just kind of came out, didn't it? What's the relationship to that, I wonder, right? You may tell yourself that, yeah, you're perfectly comfortable with that, but deep down you are not, and you can't be. None of us is. None of us is. If you were wholly comfortable juggling plates, frantic, running around, always disappointed because nothing ever turns out exactly the way you want it to, if you were 100% fully at home with this, you wouldn't be interested in the spiritual path at all. And you most certainly wouldn't be interested in the purely non-dual Course in Miracles, which holds as its primary idea, there is no world. There is no world in which to run around dazed, confused, and frantic. You're not a body with which to run around dazed and confused and frantic. Deep down, each and every one of us knows this. So at this point in our discussion, you can do a couple different things, can't you? One, you can continue watching, or two, you could simply turn this off because your ego is telling you, nah, this guy is completely full of it. This can't be. How does he know you're frantic? Well, when we run and hide, it's pretty much a guarantee, isn't it, that we're frantic, dazed, confused, scared, afraid. No problem. We've all been there. And odds are at some point today, something's going to flip that switch, isn't it? Someone's going to say something or something's going to happen that trips this trigger reflex, this habitual tendency we have to blame, to say something nasty or to think something really nasty about someone or some group of people or something. We're going to lose our peace of mind if even for just a moment it happens to us. So the importance of this discussion and all of these discussions, the importance of our spiritual practice is in recognizing when we get carried away so we can bring ourselves back. Because The state of running around chaotic and frantic, overwhelmed, stressed, cultural badge of honor, oh, look at me, here in the world is a state of war. 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 You don't have to be an enlisted member of an armed forces unit in your country. You don't. You don't have to be a professional soldier. You don't have to be involved in what the modern world considers warfare. There's no difference. There's no difference between gathering an army and attacking your neighbor and blaming someone, lashing out in hatred and rage. Even if you don't do it physically, if you think something nasty about your neighbor and say to yourself, what an awful person they are, that is also an attack thought. It's an act of war. All attack thoughts are acts of war. All loving thoughts are an expression of peace, of truth. It really is all or nothing. This is where A Course in Miracles comes into play here in our discussion, because we have a choice in the present moment between exactly two options: one, war; two, peace. Right? It's the ego or God. It's the thought system of the ego, separation, versus the thought system of the Holy Spirit, which we're learning in this course. It's dark or light, death or life. Every moment of every day, we make a choice. And if what we say and do and think is not an act of peace, boom, it's an act of war. It's an attack thought. It is a separation thought. It is a thought that posits that I am an independent, self-sustaining survival unit. You're opposed to me, so I'm going to get you before you get me, and I'm going to think and say nasty things in my mind about you, even if I would never dare say them to your face. It's war. That is certainly one way to describe it. No tanks, no guns, no advanced bombers needed. No laser-guided missiles. War. The sad condition that we find ourselves in when we identify with the ego. Conflict. That's what it is. When we perceive ourselves as alone, as isolated and separated, we can't help but go down the rabbit hole in our mind to conflict, because we see everyone else as separate and we think that they're out to get us. So we construct elaborate defenses. It's sad, and the way that we see things here in the world. So enter spirituality, enter A Course in Miracles, enter your spiritual practice, where we're invited to change our mind, to think differently. The Holy Spirit, our inner teacher, reminds us of ourself with a capital S, reminds us of truth, points us to who we really are. And it's constantly pointing. We have only, as we've seen here recently in recent videos, to take a moment out of this plate juggling, chaotic, frantic routine and listen to its guidance. Hear your inner teacher. Listen to your inner teacher who speaks to you of peace, the peace of God. Constantly. You have only to listen. The Holy Spirit does not force. Your inner teacher will never force you. It will not lasso you or rope you or bludgeon you into submission. It always speaks calmly. Its calm vision frightens the ego. To the ego, war and chaos is its survival. The Holy Spirit, on the other hand, recognizes that none of the chaos that we've made is real and invites us to change our mind, to see things differently. Peace, the very simple and natural peace of mind, of God, is the ego's enemy. Peace is the ego's enemy as the ego perceives it. The ego perceives a host of enemies. In fact, peace does not oppose. It doesn't do battle or war with the ego. It simply is and simply shines its light, in which the ego disappears. Like flipping on a light switch in a dark room, peace simply is. It doesn't need to do anything at all. It does not need to conquer. It does not need to strive. It does not need to force or subject the ego to its will or overcome it in any way. It simply is, and the ego disappears as though it were never there. Guess what? It was never there. Your inner teacher, the Holy Spirit, welcomes peace, welcomes it. And eternity, constant peace. Eternity and peace are closely related. So too are time and war. Time and space are separation thoughts, aren't they? When you think about it, yeah. Even in the abstract, right? Even by themselves, time and space are separate thoughts. Right now, it appears to be 9:31 in the morning, Arizona time, which is in North America. All right, it's 09:31. Where you are, it's a different time. Separation thought right there, isn't it? To imply one time excludes all others. Same with space. Arizona is an idea. It's a place. Actually, it's just a series of lines that a bunch of old guys got together and drew on a map a couple hundred years ago. I mean, really, any country is just that. Even an island, if you live on a country that's an island, the island wasn't always shaped the way it is now, is it? It may have been attached to the continent. A lot of them were. A lot of them used to be larger, some smaller. Space is a separation idea. The thought Arizona implies not Arizona. Everything else is outside. See? Separation ideas. There is no separation of any kind in truth. There's no need to run amok here in the world at war, because who are you really at war with? The war is in your mind. So with whom are you at war? Exactly. Exactly. When we identify with the ego, we're at war with ourselves. The Holy Spirit is part of ourself that looks on all of these mad, raving illusions and doesn't believe them and invites us instead to allow truth to be just as it is. Peace. Our inner teacher speaks of peace, and allowing our inner teacher to speak to us is how we stop the war. So it may sound obvious that we can only hear our inner teacher when our mind is relatively calm. And that is the case because when we get dragged off into conflict, when we get dragged off into all kinds of different activities, excess activities here in the world, we lose sight and focus. That's why spirituality has repetition built into it, so that we may develop a different habit. We're where we are here in the world, apparently, suffering, running around, and engaged in constant frustration because of a choice that we've made in the mind. The choice to see ourselves as separate. Your inner teacher invites you to consider that there is no separation, and your inner teacher calls you to allow him, allow her, allow it, allow them to run the show, to take control of your mind. This is part of you. You're not giving your mind over to a foreign power. There is no foreign power. There is nothing outside of you. Hmm. Your inner teacher is inner teacher, inner part of you. The Holy Spirit is part of your mind. Allow it to point the way back. Allow it to speak to you of the peace of God, which is not only your natural birthright and inheritance, it's also who you are. All right, I dropped the microphone, but it's expensive, so I won't do that. I thank you all for joining me today and every day. Your comments and questions are most welcome here. We're putting together a large international community, which is really wonderful. It's a beautiful thing that we have the ability here with YouTube and the internet and modern technology to reach one another on the other side of the world. So comments and questions are most welcome, as are your subscriptions. The subscription button's the red arrow here in the corner. So please feel welcome to join us. We'd love to have you. And again, questions, comments are most welcome, even if you just want to pop in and say hello. Thank you for tuning in, and I will talk to you very soon.